Hey friends, welcome back to Simplify with Em. Today we're going to be doing spice organization. Now, my spice drawer is already fairly well organized. It's functional. It's definitely in need of an upgrade. So that's what we'll be doing today. However, if your spice drawer or your spices are in a cabinet, a drawer, a shelf, wherever, and it's total chaos, don't worry. We're gonna create a system today that's simple and easy to use that's gonna make your spices organized, beautiful, and practical. Now, if your spices do live in a cabinet, don't worry. And toward the end of this video, I will share some options for organization in a cabinet. Let's get started.
Okay, so step one, we want to gather all of our spices together into one area. So if you have some in the pantry and a cabinet, let's pull everything out to evaluate our inventory. Going through each one, looking for duplicates, ones past their expiration date, or one-off spices bought for a recipe but never used again. For those of you starting with chaos, this is truly the most important step.
Bought once that sounded interesting and maybe you're never going to use it again. Or maybe that you want to use more often, and so it needs to go more up front and center. For example, garlic, sea salt flakes, it's totally up my alley. However, it did expire in September of 25, which for me, as far as spices go, if they still smell good, then they're probably still okay to use. It's really once it doesn't have really the scent of what the spice actually is, that you're not actually going to be able to taste it in your cooking. It still smells good, so I think I am going to keep it. However, if you have two and one isn't even open and they're both expired, then those are an easy, don't even bother putting them in a new jar, just toss them. If you haven't tried this in your ramen or Asian noodles, highly, highly recommend. We love this stuff.
As you are going through your inventory, start to categorize your spices together to later create zones.
Why do I have an empty one? I don't know. Recycle. Salt doesn't really go bad. I just know that we never reach for it. Like, I think I got it from my husband. It's not something I typically cook with. I'm just gonna go ahead and toss this one because it's not worth keeping. This was probably a husband doing of, this is one of our favorite seasonings for steak, and this one's empty, this one's full. How much you wanna bet this one's not even been? Yeah, it's brand new. So we must have finished this one on the last one. He left the empty container in the thing. So this one's interesting. This one is 2024. We love these seasonings. I don't know why we don't use this one. Maybe it's the smoky flavor and our family just doesn't love it. It smells so good. So I'm gonna have to figure out why we're not using this one. Is this one we just tried once and didn't really like? Did the kids not like it? We need to figure that out, because if they didn't like it, there's no sense in keeping it. We can get rid of this one. Same with this one, 2024, the Santa Maria. We maybe only used it once. Cracked pepper and herbs. I don't know why this one's full, so we'll find out about this one too. This and this on your bacon, 100% recommend. These have existed since our old house, and this one drives me absolutely crazy. Like, half the time it doesn't actually crack the pepper, and wanted to separate the set. So today is the day that we are going to donate this set and replace it with an upgrade. This one's 2023 specialty salts. I feel comfortable sending this one. We don't ever use this one. These bay leaves, I'm really looking forward to upgrading into glass containers. Get out our drawer. We're gonna go clean this up. Our drawer is now clean. So remember when I told you to go find all of your spices and bring them into one area? I completely forgot about my backstock spices. Grouping items based on how I cook. I have my little section here for baking spices. I have things and like packets. We've got kind of more spicy blends, like specialty blends. Like I said earlier, combined for bacon is amazing. We get these in Vermont. Pure maple sugar, black pepper, salt, and garlic powder. I mean, I add the extra maple sugar because, you know, you can't have enough sugar when you're baking. Seaweed seasoning for our ramen. My daughter puts this on her ramen. Turmeric and ginger. Cayenne goes also with our ramen. I'm almost wondering if I should set up like a ramen little section. You set up for you. So this is kind of our groupings. Now that we've pulled out all the expired stuff, we've categorized everything, how we use our spices, now comes time for the fun part, the upgrade part. We are going to transfer everything into some beautiful glass jars with some uniform labels. I did get some really cute, I got a cute little upgrade for the salt and pepper. They're small, fit on our dining room table a little bit better when we set them out. And I like these because they kind of match this other little set that we have for our more fancy salt. So it was back and forth on whether or not we were going to do a square jar or a round jar. Most of the family wanted square jars. They thought that they would be easier to hold and put back into the drawer. They come with a lid, the holes. So consider that whether or not you are someone who likes having these little toppers on your jars, or if you prefer an open lid, which I did get an open one and I'll show that in just a second. So I liked the labels that came with these. Again, upgrade, right? So personally, I'm gonna use these. Also came with, this is actually a really cool set. And I'm going to keep all of these for clients in case, you know, you guys want to do an upgrade. We were going back and forth on if we wanted square or round jars. I like the idea of the round jars for like bay leaves to be able to fit. So I like open, wider mouth jars. See, this one also fits a lot more. You know that you prefer to use like a measuring spoon and dip into your spices, and it always annoys you that these ones have little lids, then go ahead and go with something like this. That's how we're gonna get these little lids off. We're gonna use a little side of the knife, and we're gonna pop those open. Now that we have our little bay leaf one, we could technically see, but I feel like for my big, which if you cook with these for pasta, you know, you put these in your pasta water, I feel like they would just end up all breaking trying to shove them in there. Oops, it's all the water. So with this cool little marker, we can take our expiration date. And on the bottom, just write the expiration date. And then these lids do fit these organics. This could be an option too if you just want everything to kind of have this like wooden look to it. They do fit, so they are transferable. Okay, so I'm about halfway through the project and I'm realizing maybe the bigger containers made more sense based on some of these spices. Look at how pretty though. All right, continuing on today, ran out of time last week, which was actually a blessing in disguise because I was able to live with the drawer filled up and I absolutely love it. It just brought me so much joy to open up this drawer when I was cooking and just be able to see all my spices, and then excited to get these labels on these jars today. So first off though, we need to get the jars out of here so that I can remove the plastic that is on the risers. And I don't think I went over the risers last week, but I did pre-measure, and I want to make sure that I'm unloading these in the order that I put them in because I grouped all my spices. We had them grouped. I did a little bit of tweaks here and there. So most used spices up front, occasional specialty spices kind of in the middle, and then your lesser used spices toward the back. That's kind of what I followed, except I also wanted my most used spices when I'm standing at the stove to be closer to me in this direction. So everything that was kind of in this bottom right quadrant is everything I use on a daily basis. Everything in the last row, which is lesser used stuff, and then the spices that are on that side of the drawer are kind of more of my specialty blends and specialty baking, and which will live on that side. Actually, I kind of want to show these little risers. It came in a pack of 8, and so for my drawer, I measured. So what you want to do is you want to measure, you want to make sure height-wise and width-wise that your risers are going to fit your drawer. Okay, so you want to measure your drawer from the inside to know how much space you have for your risers. So I have approximately 31 inches inside, 19 and a half. Once I went back and forth on if I wanted the clear or the kind of like wooden tone ones, but because I was already going to do the jars with the wooden tone lids, I kind of wanted the clear. So each of these are 13 inches. When I put my riser in, and I want to have a second one next to it, 13 and 13 is 26. You can do basic math. Okay. I also realized, there's one side that has a wider lip and then a more narrow lip. And so depending on if you want your rise be a little bit shorter. So it's kind of hard to see, but you can either have a more, the angle of your rise be lower, or if you flip it this way, the angle of your rise to be higher. So depending on how much room you have height-wise, right? Because you also have to take that into account. So don't have quite enough room. Say you have a 24-inch drawer, then you could technically overlap this. Simplest way I thought to do this was using a piece of tape. It's green tape. Now, most of the jars are the same height. I want the label to be in the center, so I'm gonna put this tape right along the lid. So now we can go left to right, right to left, however you want to do it. We're using these labels that just came with the jars labels. So we're gonna peel that off. This one is technically a no chicken. It's like a vegan seasoning blend, but my daughter loves putting it on her chicken ramen. So we are gonna call that chicken seasoning. Now that everything has a label, this will be an easy one for when I'm putting like red pepper flakes on the table for my guests. Okay, so now that we finished the drawer, it's time to tackle the backstock before we can be done with this project. Purchase your spices in bulk. You need a place to store your backstock, your extras. So I have this little bin. This is going to live in another area of your kitchen. So for me, this lives in my pantry, but this could also live higher up in a cabinet. You start to run low of your spices in your drawer. You can easily just pull your backstock bin down. Like this is one we go through very often in this house, our crushed red pepper. I can just easily bring my backstock bin down, refill my crushed red pepper while I'm there. I can also refill my peppercorns. It does not have to be living in the same drawer with all of my everyday spices. All right, so here we are. As promised earlier in the video, we were gonna go over some options if you didn't have a spice drawer and you were working with either a spice cabinet or a shelf on your pantry. So to recap, you collected all your spices into one area. You now have gone through them, checked for expiration dates, tossed anything that's old or that you're not actually using, grouped them together based on your categories on how you cook. So now I'm gonna show you how to organize them in a cabinet or a pantry shelf. So we are using my baking cabinet. With the shelf that you're working with, you took your spices out. Let's give it a quick little cleanup. So a few points that you need to check when you're measuring, right? Check your depth. So for me, I have about 14 inches to work with here depth-wise. And you also want to check your height. So height-wise, I have about 12. That's something you want to keep in mind with the different options that we're going to use. So you got two options. A 3-tiered organizer. I love this one from the Container Store because it has these little springs that when you expand, it actually stays together and it has this solid base on the bottom. I also really like about this one is that it's got wider shelves on the 3 tiers or wider tiers so that you can actually put bigger jars on. 22.5-ish. I want to make sure that you still have a little bit of stability here, which is what I like about this 3-tiered organizer. Something else to keep in mind when using a 3-tiered organizer though in your cabinet is if you're gonna push it all the way to the back because you want that extra shelf on that bottom floor, so you wanna still make sure you can reach all the way in the back. So we can pull this forward and we can just work with the space that we're given here. Let's continue to fill it up. Now I'm gonna follow the same pattern that I did with my drawer. I'm gonna have my everyday spices up front, my occasional spices in the middle, and my lesser used specialty spices toward the back. Okay, and similar to the drawer, how I mentioned, making sure that you can still fit your hands easily to grab the spices that you mentioned, the height measurement, so that you still have enough room to when you're reaching back here to your 3rd row, you can easily pull your 3rd row spice out and then place it back in without anything getting knocked over or lost back there because you can't see. So this is a great option for a cabinet or a shelf. Another option is a turntable, Lazy Susan, or like my daughter calls it, a wheelie table. So you've got your little wheelie table, and I chose one that kind of had a lower lip. It's got about a 1-inch lip on there. So that way it's low enough to where you can still pull the spices, but tall enough to where the spices won't fall off. I wasn't planning on putting these two things together on the same shelf, but wow, did that work out well. Okay. And so now that you have your little wheelie table, you can spin, you can see all of the spices that you have. It's great if you only have a small amount of space or when you only use a small amount of spices. You don't necessarily need a larger 3-tiered organizer or maybe less height in your cabinet. Then also be a great option if you have taller containers. What if you're taller salt and pepper shakers? These could easily go on here as well, right? So now you have your oil, your bigger blends, and your salt and pepper. So now you're not having to even consider changing your big blends into a smaller thing. And this is something you can incorporate too, even if you do have a drawer. And that's it. We have our beautifully upgraded spice drawer. I love this. I could not be any happier with the result. We've got our jars, our matching labels, everything just looks tidy and put together, and it supports the way that I cook. Now, if you're feeling inspired by this project and you want to do it yourself, but you don't think you have the time or the bandwidth to do it yourself, that is what I am here for. Please reach out to Simplify with M. I am happy to work on your spice drawer, your kitchen cabinet, your whole kitchen. Let's make it work for you by creating simple and efficient systems. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. What? What is it? Oh my God.
We're showing the whole time.